I used to think I understood what love meant. It wasn't passion that burned fast and vanished. It was quiet, steady, and dependable. That's what Adelaide gave me, a kind of peace I didn't think I deserved. We'd been together for almost a decade, from late college nights to the chaos of building our careers. She was the calm in my storm, always patient, always smiling even when the world seemed cruel. And yet, I ruined everything. I can't even explain why I downloaded that damn dating app. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was pride, the stupid, poisonous kind that whispers, "You still got it." It started as harmless, faceless messages, flirting, jokes, then photos. I told myself it wasn't cheating if it was digital. No touch, no real intimacy. But deep down, I knew better. Every click, every photo, every lie chipped away at something sacred. Then she appeared. Her name was Ivy. At least that's what she said. She knew how to say the right things, how to make me feel wanted in ways that were dangerous. She didn't even have to try hard. I was already too far gone. When she asked for more pictures, I hesitated. But by then, she already had enough. Enough to destroy me. A week later, she started asking for money. 500, then 1,000. And when I didn't reply fast enough, she sent me a screenshot of her email draft, ready to go, addressed to my colleagues, my family, even Adelaide. That night I stared at the ceiling for hours. And I paid. The first payment was supposed to make it go away. It didn't. She came back every few days with new threats, new angles, new proofs. Sometimes she'd send me a blurred photo just to remind me she had power over me. 1,500, 2,500, 4,000. I told myself I was protecting Adelaide, protecting our life. But the truth was uglier. I was protecting myself, my reputation, my ego. I drained our savings quietly. Adelaide thought I was investing part of it into a work project, and I let her believe it. Every lie came smoother than the last. Every "don't worry about it" cut her a little more. And then one morning she smiled at me over breakfast. That soft, tired smile that said, "I'm glad you're here." I nearly broke down right there, because I knew what I'd done. I'd stolen from her, betrayed her trust, and handed our future to a stranger behind a screen. I wanted to confess, but I couldn't. Not yet. A week later, Ivy sent her final message. "You're done paying. Time to face the music." I called her. She didn't pick up. Then 2 hours later, the first video leaked. The messages started rolling in before I even saw the video. My best friend, my cousin, a coworker, all asking the same thing. "Is this you?" When I finally opened the file, my stomach turned. There I was. Every detail, every shameful second. And worse, the background wasn't from years ago like I'd told myself it would be. It was our flat. Our bed. I don't remember how long I sat staring at the screen, my heart punching through my ribs. Adelaide came home earlier than usual that day. I didn't even hear her come in. I just heard the front door close. Then silence. When I turned around, she was standing there, pale, trembling, clutching her phone. We locked eyes for a long time. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just looked at me, as if trying to find the man she used to know somewhere behind my face. "Are they old?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I lied. "Yeah, before us." But then she saw the furniture, the curtains, the reflection of our wedding photo in the corner of the video frame, and I knew it was over. The days that followed the leak felt like a slow descent into chaos. News spread fast, whispers turning into shouts. Faces I once knew turned cold, and friends I relied on became distant shadows. Adelaide was quieter than ever, retreating into herself, her eyes haunted by the revelations. I spent hours staring at my phone, waiting for the next message, the next threat. But what haunted me most was the feeling that I was losing control, not over my life, but over myself. The weight of shame pressed down like an anchor, dragging me deeper into remorse. One evening, as I sat in our dim living room, a knock at the door startled me. I opened it to find a stranger, a man with sharp eyes and an air of quiet authority. "Are you James?" he asked softly. I nodded cautiously. "Who's asking?" He held out a badge. "Private investigator. My name is Marcus Hayes. I've been hired to look into Ivy. Your case came across my desk yesterday. I thought you might want to know what I've found." My heart skipped a beat. "And what is that?" Marcus stepped inside, flipping open a leather folder. I traced her IP addresses, her emails. There's more to her or him than meets the eye. Ivy isn't acting alone, I suspect. There's a network behind this. Someone's orchestrating all of it. He paused, studying me carefully. "You're not the only victim here. Ivy has a history years of manipulation, extortion, even blackmail. I've found evidence suggesting she's been doing this to others, some of whom never spoke out." I felt a strange mixture of anger and despair. "And what now? Do you have proof? How can I be sure?" Marcus smiled faintly. "That's what I do. I gather facts. I show you the truth. But be warned, this won't be easy. Ivy's dangerous. She's unpredictable, and her reach is wider than anyone thinks." As his words sank in, I realized how little I knew about the girl who had haunted me, who had almost destroyed everything. Ivy was more than just a manipulator. She was entwined in a web of deceit that stretched beyond my own mistakes. I looked him in the eye. "Then I want to see everything, no matter what it is. I need to understand who she is, who I was blinded by." Marcus nodded, closing the folder. "Good, because the past can come back to haunt us in many forms, and sometimes the only way forward is to face it head-on." Days turned into restless nights as I grappled with the mounting evidence Marcus provided. Each new detail revealed layers of Ivy's deception, her motives dark and tangled, her motives rooted deep in past betrayals and unspoken wounds. The truth was beginning to seep into my consciousness like poison, stirring a storm of guilt and anger within me. Adelaide remained distant, her eyes vacant, as if she was lost in a maze of her own thoughts. When I finally managed to lure her into a quiet moment, I gently asked, "What do you think we should do?" She looked away, biting her lip. "I don't know. I feel like I'm drowning in everything I thought I knew. Ivy. She's not who we believed she was. And I don't even know who I am anymore with all this." Her voice trembled, vulnerability shining through her words. I reached out, taking her hand in mine. "We can't change the past, Adelaide, but we can decide how to move forward together or apart. I want to fix this, to fight for what's real." That night, I sat alone in the darkness, contemplating the choices ahead. The revelations had shattered many illusions, exposing the fragile veneer of trust I had held onto. I realized I'd been living in denial, clinging to the hope that Ivy's manipulation was just a one-time act. But now, understanding her true nature, I saw how deeply I had been deceived. Within me, a tumult of conflicting emotions raged: shame for my naivety, fear of the unknown, and a flicker of determination. I knew I had to face the truth, no matter how painful it might be. To do that, I needed to confront Ivy and unravel her secrets once and for all. As dawn broke, I promised myself I would uncover her motivations, unmask her lies, and reclaim my life from the shadows of her deception. But I also knew that in doing so, I would be risking everything: my reputation, my safety, and perhaps even my future. Yet, in that uncertainty, a sliver of hope emerged, that through this darkness, I might find a new beginning. The silence of the morning was oppressive. I pressed my back against the cold wall, trying to gather my thoughts as the weight of the past pressed heavily on my shoulders. Yesterday's revelations lingered in my mind. Ivy's web of lies, the shadowy network she belonged to, and the deep wounds buried beneath the surface. That evening, I decided to revisit the past, digging into old memories that seemed like distant echoes. As I sifted through photos, emails, and journals, a pattern emerged, fragments of a story I had long suppressed. In a faded photograph, Ivy was smiling, young, carefree. Yet behind that smile, I sensed an underlying pain. This wasn't someone simply manipulating others for her own gain. She was fighting battles I never knew existed. A journal entry caught my eye. It was her voice, raw and vulnerable. "I've learned that secrets fester in the dark, feeding on our fears. If I ever lose control, everything I've built will fall apart. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just running from my past, or if I've already become it." The words sent a shiver down my spine. Ivy's history was intertwined with mine more than I realized. Her pain was real, and her actions, terrible as they were, stemmed from years of unresolved trauma. Had I seen her only as the villain, I might have missed the broken girl behind the facade. And then I remembered a name from her past, someone she refused to speak about. A shadow lurking in her history, waiting for the right moment to resurface. Ivy's web was more tangled than I'd ever imagined, and understanding her past was the only way to piece together her motives. If I was to face her, I needed to confront her secrets, no matter how uncomfortable the truth might be. That night, I reached out to Marcus again, sharing my discovery. "She's not just a villain," I said quietly. "She's a person, someone who's been hurt so badly she's become this other thing. To stop her, I need to understand her pain." Marcus listened intently. "That makes sense, but be careful. Knowing her past might give us answers, but it could also unlock shame or rage we can't control. Proceed with caution." As I closed the call, I felt a strange mixture of resolve and apprehension. To truly free myself and Adelaide from Ivy's grasp, I would have to delve deeper into her past, into her soul, and confront whatever darkness lurked there. Because sometimes, understanding the shadows is the only way to find the light. The evening air was thick with tension as I made my way to the meet point Marcus had arranged. Underneath the dim glow of a street lamp, I saw her Ivy, standing alone, her silhouette sharp against the night sky. As I approached cautiously, she turned slowly, her eyes unreadable. The silence stretched between us until I finally spoke. "Why, Ivy?" I asked, voice trembling slightly. "Why did you do all of this?" She studied me for a long moment, then sighed, a brittle smile touching her lips. "You really want to know the truth? Or are you just seeking closure?" "Because I need answers. I need to understand what drives someone like you." She stepped forward, her movements deliberate. "I've spent years trying to hide the pain, my past. It's a dark one. My life was shattered early on, abandoned, betrayed, hurt more than I can say. I built walls inside me so high that I couldn't see the way out." Her voice cracked briefly. "Manipulation? Yes, I used it. Blackmail? I mastered it. But it was all a survival mechanism. I became who I am to keep going, to feel in control, even if I had to destroy everything in the process." I listened, stunned. Her vulnerability was unsettling, conflicting sharply with her ruthless actions. I had always thought of her as a villain, but now I saw a girl haunted by her past. "Then why target me?" I asked softly. "Why drag me into this?" Ivy looked away, a flicker of regret crossing her face. "Because I thought I was protecting myself. I saw you as a weakness, a vulnerability I couldn't afford. But I was wrong. I never wanted to hurt you. I just didn't know how to stop." A heavy silence settled between us. The woman before me was not just the architect of chaos. She was a wounded soul trying to fight her demons. In that moment, I realized there was no simple answer, no clear villain, no clear hero. Just two people scarred by history, trying to survive. And in her eyes, I saw a flicker of hope, perhaps the first genuine spark in a long time. "Maybe," I said cautiously, "we're both lost in the darkness, but maybe, together, we can find a way out." Ivy hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Maybe. But be careful. There's more to me than you think. Always remember that." As she vanished into the shadows, I knew that this confrontation was only the beginning. The real work lay ahead, unraveling the tangled threads of her past, confronting my own, and deciding whether our futures could ever truly intersect. The days that followed felt like standing at a crossroads. Ivy's revelation shook my perceptions of her and of myself. As much as I wanted to believe she was a victim of her past, I also understood that her actions had caused undeniable pain. The delicate balance between empathy and justice became my guiding compass. Adelaide and I spent hours discussing our next move. She was calmer now, her tears replaced by a quiet determination. "We can't keep hiding," she said softly. "We need to face everything head on. Whatever her past is, whatever she becomes, at least we won't be afraid anymore." Her words gave me strength. The thought of confronting Ivy again, this complex, broken woman, no longer seemed like a futile chase for redemption, but a necessary step towards liberation for all of us. That afternoon, I met Marcus again. We devised a plan to gather irrefutable evidence of Ivy's past, her current whereabouts, and her potential motives. Our goal, to ensure we could protect ourselves and others from her manipulations. Meanwhile, I began to reflect on my own journey. How could I grow from this chaos? How could I transform betrayal into resilience? I realized that understanding Ivy's pain didn't justify her actions, but it offered a chance at compassion, an essential ingredient, if healing was to ever take root. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I stood in the empty street thinking about the road ahead. It was uncertain, fraught with danger and uncertainty. But no matter what, I was no longer willing to run from the truth or hide behind illusions. I took a deep breath and whispered to myself, "This is my moment. To face what's broken, to make sense of what's lost, and to forge a new path, one built on honesty and strength." Looking up, I saw a faint glimmer of hope, that despite the shadows that loomed, a future was possible if I dared to walk through the darkness. The night was thick with tension as I sat alone in my room, contemplating everything I had learned. Ivy's past was a tangled web of pain, betrayal, and survival elements that explained, but did not justify, her ruthless behavior. Yet, understanding her motives only deepened the complexity. Could I truly reach her, or was she too far gone in her darkness? Suddenly, a faint knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. I hesitated, then opened it to find Adelaide standing there, her face pale but resolute. "There's something you need to see," she said urgently, clutching a small envelope. "It's from Ivy." I took it, feeling a rush of nervous energy. Inside was a single photograph, a black and white image of Ivy as a young girl, holding hands with a man I recognized from her stories as her father. The back of the photo was scrawled with a simple message: "Some truths are too heavy to carry alone." My heart pounded. This was a new piece of her puzzle, a glimpse into the innocence lost long ago. As I stared at the photo, a surge of conflicting emotions swelled within me: empathy, anger, fear, hope. In that moment, I realized the path forward would not be easy. Ivy's pain ran deep, buried beneath layers of anger and self-protection. To reach her, I would need to confront not only her darkness, but also the ghosts of her past. I looked at Adelaide. We need to prepare ourselves. There are truths she's hiding, and I don't think she's ready to face them yet. But they won't stay buried forever. The weight of those words settled heavily as I clutched the photograph tight. I knew that things were about to reach a breaking point, a moment when everything would come to light, and the true test of our resolve would begin. Because sometimes, the most profound revelations are born out of the deepest pain. The day we both feared had arrived. The day all secrets and hidden pains were finally exposed. The time for hiding was over. Ivy stood before me, her face a mix of exhaustion and resolve. "Everything I've hidden," she began softly, "is a part of me, part of my story. But I can't hide anymore," she continued, eyes full of tears. "I'm tired of this." I felt her pain, her fears, and her hopes. She wasn't just a killer or a manipulator. She was a victim, like me, a person lost in a labyrinth of trauma and betrayal. At that moment, Marcus and Adelaide entered the room, holding evidence photos, documents, recordings that linked Ivy to her past and revealed truths she had been afraid to face. "This is everything," Marcus said. "Now you can't hide anything." Ivy took a deep breath, summoning her courage. She looked at me and at them, both pivotal to her transformation. The time was set. "I want to make amends," she said firmly. "I don't promise it will be easy, but I'm ready to go all the way." We took a step forward, not as enemies, but as people united by a common goal to unravel the tangled threads of the past and build a new future. But our path wasn't only internal transformation. Hidden enemies lurking in the shadows didn't plan to give up quietly. Suddenly the door burst open with a loud bang. Armed men stormed in, their intentions clear. "This can't be stopped now," one of them hissed. "Back off or be destroyed." In that instant, everything became clear. This was the final confrontation, the climax that would test not only our strength, but also our souls. Amid gunfire and chaos, Ivy's tears-filled eyes clutched my hand. "Remember," she whispered, "we're in this together. This is our last chance." I nodded, knowing that fate had decided to deliver its verdict. We fought with every ounce of strength, uniting hearts and minds to overcome the darkness that had swallowed our lives. When the smoke cleared, we were left alone, surrounded by destruction and memories. Yet, even in this darkness, I felt hope. Because love, forgiveness, and faith in better days still awaited us beyond the horizon. And Ivy smiled at me, the first genuine smile in a long time. "We did it. We found our freedom," she said softly. That day, we left behind all the pain and turned the page to something new. Let it be filled with light and hope, despite everything. This was not the end. It was a beginning of a shared journey, where light would prevail over darkness,